Okay, hello. Andrei Zonev, CTO Maximum Bid here. We have a webinar today about turnkey appliance for Citrix desktop virtualization. When we look at the market today, obviously Citrix implementations are done in a custom fashion, and that's the typical scenario. People run into a lot of challenges because the system is sort of architected and designed each and every time individually, and hence each team goes through the learning curve of getting this deployment done, troubleshoot, identify any misconfiguration issues, and so on. So now there is an alternative option on the market with Desktop 365 appliance as a turnkey solution, pre-architected, automated deployment. Literally within a week's desktop virtualization can be brought up and made available and working in the data center. If we look at it conceptually, many of us are already familiar with the trend for hyperconvergence on the market, where essentially hardware and virtualization layer up to hypervisor are combined and provided as a sort of integrated system, and it's scalable. Now, what Desktop 365 appliance does really, it looks at the layers above the hyperconverged system, so like operating system, data, software, and then automation layer required for desktop virtualization to work, bundles it all together in one turnkey solution. Now, what does it mean? I mean, really, if a company needs to implement desktop virtualization or upgrade an existing environment, now it does not need to be a custom implementation project. It can be really as simple as buying a product. So a company contacts Desktop 365 team or a certified partner, and in about an hour call, really, the requirements for desktop virtualization can be understood and documented. We have checklists and trackers available, so it's relatively easy to go through that template and understand the requirements, whether it's application virtualization, desktop virtualization, persistent desktops, non-persistent, and so on, and then the capacity in compute required. The next step really is to specify the appliance configuration. So those requirements are translated into hardware and software licensing, sizing, again, all template-based, so it can be done pretty much with few mouse clicks. Hence, it's then at that point it's clear what to order. So the company can order this appliance from a partner or from our team, this includes sort of hardware and software licensing required. Obviously, existing software licensing for Citrix or Microsoft can be reused. And then the company receives this appliance, installs in the data center, and then we can just run a setup wizard for automated deployment of a Citrix desktop virtualization environment. I'll be demonstrating to you today what setup wizard does and what's really needed, so how simple it is to use. It integrates with existing Active Directory of the company as an option, as part of this automated deployment itself. And then there may be a couple additional applications that need to be installed on provided base OS image. Again, this step typically may take a couple hours. Then the system is instantly available for users to subscribe and start working. So overall, this end-to-end process really can happen within a couple of weeks, and after the hardware arrives in the data center, and it's a perfectly working desktop virtualization environment. Here it's a little bit technical deep dive into what's inside. First of all, it's the appliance is a Citrix-ready product. gone through all the reviews with Citrix teams, and it follows all the best practice guidelines provided by Citrix. In essence, it's an aggregation of multiple layers of technologies. So it's appliance nodes, hardware, virtualization layer up to the hypervisor. And then there is a software stack, which is mostly Citrix products and Microsoft products. Desktop 365 automation software developed by Maximum Bit for end-to-end automation of this solution. And then a set of installation and integration services are also packaged in this and are well defined upfront. The next slide here gives a little bit an insight into the software products involved in this solution. So the software stack includes NetScalers and desktop, SQL Server, Active Directory, DFS for file shares. Obviously, this system can be integrated with existing file shares as well. And then there is a portal VM that provides application store and administration portal functions and virtualization layer. From the hardware perspective, there is a pretty wide range of hardware options that's provided from Desktop 365 offering. It starts with small systems that can be used for POCs and pilots, and goes up to systems that can host 50, 100, or 300 users per server. And then multiple servers would be put together to build a sort of multi-thousand user system as well. Maximum Bit provides hardware. It's a DX series appliances, but we also provide bill of materials for most of the major OEMs like Cisco, HP, Dell, and so this solution has been deployed on that hardware over the past years, and so it's that way it's hardware agnostic. But there is also a cost-efficient option to order hardware from Maximum Bit. Here, this slide outlines a two-node configuration. Really, what happens is that we are building a hyperconverged system starting from two nodes, and these two nodes work as two storage nodes at the same time. The same nodes are in cluster, so VMs would fail over if one kind of node fails, then they fail over to the other node. Which is very cost-efficient way of using hardware with two nodes. You get full redundancy on storage and at a clustering level. And then obviously the system can expand from there. The interesting metric has been collected here using Passmark software as a test. Passmark is essentially one of the sort of tools to test your endpoint device like laptops, PCs, and computers, and it collects a set of performance metrics about CPU, memory speeds, storage speed. So DiskMark is a storage performance metric that it collects, and we run this tool on traditional VDI with 20 IOPS, laptops with hard disk, and laptops with SSD. And then Desktop 365 VDI. And what's coming out that the virtual desktop provided by this system is actually 2 times faster than laptop with SSD. So we really completely eliminated storage performance bottleneck, and that's a huge advantage of this type of a system. As I mentioned earlier, starting from 2 nodes, the system can expand. The additional nodes added, they host mostly worker VMs. The first 2 nodes deploy worker VMs and as well as management VMs. And so for production purposes, the Citrix farm is deployed on 2 nodes. So SQL VM is in mirroring, for example. There are 2 NetScaler VMs. Obviously, hardware NetScaler can be also used. outside of the system. At smaller deployments, we use VPX, and 2 of them are deployed, and then 2 Zen desktop controllers are deployed as well. So it's fully production-ready system after the automated installation on 2 nodes. The Desktop 365 automation software conceptually has 2 parts. One is workspace management, something that we also call an application store, where really business users can subscribe to apps from the catalog, get approved by their manager, and instantly get access to that application. Or a manager of a department can enable, disable users within his group, and also assign applications or desktops to those users from the library without contacting IT, which obviously reduces the time to get access to applications for business, but at the same time eliminates unnecessary overhead on IT teams, kind of for multiple people touching Active Directory and going to the Zen Desktop Studio. The other set of tools here are automating IT lifecycle, so IT lifecycle management. So installation is done using Setup Wizard tool, and when the environment is built, then IT administration is done by administration portal, and a number of workflows are streamlined using it. So really it acts as a wrapper sort of portal around the Citrix farm, and for most activities you don't really need to go to the Desktop Studio. You can kind of manage it in a simpler and faster way using administration portal. We're getting now into sort of a demo section of this webinar, where this slide gives a high-level introduction to the Setup Wizard that actually does the deployment of a Citrix desktop virtualization environment. Now, as an input, we're providing an installation package that includes Setup Wizard MSI, so it can be installed on any sort of Windows 8 or 10 laptop. And then there is a configuration file, an XML file with all configuration settings of the environment. Really, the starting point for this deployment is a plain OS image, which is then provided here as well. And so installation of all the software and all management VMs is done automatically, and configuration of that software is also done automatically. Now, the Setup Wizard really is used to capture some of the that specific deployment configuration that's needed. For example, license files, domain NOU configuration, passwords, IP addresses, certificate, and the URLs. It's really environment specific. Then you click next, and it deploys the full environment shown on the right side. In HA mode, it deploys actually to two hypervisors simultaneously, and have management components on each of the nodes. For demo purposes today, this is the configuration that will be used. So I have a laptop as a sort of workstation with a Setup Wizard, software router, and then our demo appliance. It's an Intel NUC, small device, but very powerful, and we can deploy a full Citrix environment on this device. So I will get out of the presentation mode and then switch to the Setup Wizard. So here is the Setup Wizard screen. Now, in addition to the Setup Wizard, there is a software that we call Trace Tool, which actually captures all activities that are done by the Setup Wizard during deployment, and shows them here. So for troubleshooting purposes, you can really use this information. Now, also here I'm bringing up an remote desktop connection to the appliance where we are doing this deployment. So you see in Hyper-V Manager, for example, that no VMs are available on that system, and so the hypervisor is present, and so that's the starting point for the setup wizard. So now so the one more thing I wanted to show is the configuration file. So here you see some of the insights. For example, here is the name of the Active Directory VM, and then configuration in terms of which VHDs are used, and then all other components of those VMs are captured here. And this is the configuration file that we will be using here. So let's start deployment. So we accept the terms and conditions and click Next. At this point, to speed up this demonstration, I'm using an existing config file from previous deployment so that I don't need to maybe waste time entering information in the setup wizard, but obviously, as you can see, all these fields can be overwritten. We're doing Hyper-V based standalone deployment, so it will be done on one node. And here we're providing a folder information where the golden images are located of the Windows Server 2012 and Windows 8 OS, which then Setup Wizard can use and build this environment. Click Next. Here we just by IP address need to connect to appliance. Here we already connected, but if I click on Add Appliance, this is really what you need to provide. So you provide IP address, hypervisor admin, and then hypervisor password. If this is one node deployment, then it's a primary role. If there is a second node, then in the same fashion, the second node will be added and will be configured as secondary. So we're already connected to the appliance, so click Next. The setup wizard now validates that this appliance has the needed resources. It passed that step in validation, so we're good. Then here we just need to provide the licensing information. It's a Desktop 365 licensing, it's a NetScaler license, and then desktop license that are provided as files. Click Next. This is the OU configuration. So the system requires two organization units within Active Directory, and if it integrates with existing Active Directory, then it only requires those two OUs with read-write permissions. It doesn't touch the rest of the Active Directory. That's pretty secure configuration. Then password information for this roles need to be provided. Local Windows admin service account that's used for communicating and read-write for the OUs in AD as well as SQL. And then the first business role, business admin, is created so that after the setup wizard is done, you can really log in with this role and launch virtual desktops. And then a couple more screens. Here you just provide a couple IP addresses, really. The default gateway IP address to access internet, and static IP address for NetScaler management IP, NetScaler certificate and password. And here one more IP for the administration portal that's being built. The same is reused for Storefront. So Storefront is deployed in parallel, also in an automated way, and really users have now two ways to connect to the environment, which is a great from sort of providing users that level of redundancy. And then NetScaler gateway IP need to be provided for this specific environment. Click Next. So this is the last screen of data entry. That's all what's needed to be done to deploy the appliance. Obviously, if there are some really unique requirements, they can be done at the configuration file level, like names of the VMs and host names and so on. So that flexibility is obviously there. But now, when we click Next, for the next about 90 minutes, the wizard will run on its own, and build the environment. So what you see on the top, the first Netscaler VM comes up, and then you will see shortly Active Directory VM popping up, and then they will be powered up and built, and so the whole deployment sort of starting. You see the trace tool outlining each and every step that's being done by the setup wizard, and so we have full control about what's happening in this environment. So that's in short about the setup wizard. So I'll let it run, but for now we will switch to the portal. This demo will be done from our data center hosted demo environment, and it is exactly the same portal that's deployed on individual appliances. Here I will log in as demo admin. What you see in the middle is really a Citrix web interface functionality, so there's ability to launch applications for user as well as desktops. But the menu bar on the top is what has been created as a sort of application store and administration portal. The first two roles, the user and an admin, are business roles. You can imagine a company having multiple departments. A department for us is an organization and or a group of users, and then one or two users can have admin rights to manage this group of users as well. So a user can launch applications here, but the user also can go to the library and subscribe or unsubscribe. For this demo, let me just quickly unsubscribe from a couple resources so we can see that part, and they immediately disappear from the list of applications that the user has. Now, in the same way, the user can subscribe, and MS Paint is configured that it doesn't require approval, and hence, after user subscribes, Paint is instantly available and can be launched. Now, Excel is configured that it does require an approval, and so after the user subscribes, it says subscription pending, which is a good segue into the admin role. So the admin of this group can be a manager or an admin to the manager, will receive an email notification and can go to requests. We'll see this request for an application, in this case Microsoft Excel, on the top, and then just clicks on it, opens up, and has an option to approve or reject this request. So I'll approve the request, and the user instantly has Excel. So that's as simple as it is to manage access to applications or desktops from this library. Really just a couple of mouse clicks. Now, the administrator of the group can do more. In the library of this organization, the applications can be configured like MS Paint for auto subscription, enable auto subscription, whereas Excel was not configured that way. And so what it means is that when a new user is added to this organization, MS Paint will be auto-assigned to that user. So you don't really need to do manual assignment of apps or desktops for a new user. The system knows the user in this organization, what apps or desktops are needed. And then those that are not selected for auto subscription can be assigned individually. Now also the next flag is enable in users catalog. So certain apps can be made visible to users so they can kind of subscribe to them and use them as needed. Certain apps maybe require next level of security or are expensive and may not need to be made visible in a user's catalog. So like Chrome, for example, is not enabled in the user's catalog. An admin can still go and click on subscribed users and assign this to a user. I'm a demo administrator here, so let me assign it sort of to myself, and then the user, well, myself, instantly has access to Chrome. So applications can be assigned essentially from the library by an admin to users. And then the admin has ability to manage users, enable or disable, sort of click update here is all what's needed to block access to the system and so on. Obviously, ability to create new users, import users is possible here as well. So that's in brief the application store functionality. The administration portal is what really the engineer can do. And at a high level, this falls into three sort of areas. One is backend management of the application store. So whatever users or administrators could do, the engineer can do and a little bit more. So engineer can create additional organizations here. Engineer can see all the users in the system and manage, sort of add, remove users, promote to administrator, those activities. And then there is a master library which has all the applications in the system, and the engineer can decide which organization will see which apps and will have access to those. So that's sort of back end of the application store. The other part is under configuration menu. Is really, in essence, we call it environment management or Citrix farm management. So here you see the Zen desktop farm and Zen app in this specific deployment. Obviously, we're standardizing now on 7.6, so the new deployments will have just one farm available. There is a SMTP integration with mail server. There is a hosts functionality as a relatively easy way to add additional appliance nodes in the system to this portal, made them visible, and then the system automatically distributes VMs across the nodes. The third area is VM management. It's a neat way of integrating together the VHD and network templates to VM templates, and then VM templates in turn is integrated with application template or desktop template. And I mean, it is as simple as, for example, if we take an application template, take, let's say, Notepad. Here it's provided where the application is located and what is the VM template used for this application. So Notepad would be published, for example, as an app. So there's no need to go to the desktop console after this configuration is done, and when after obviously this VM template is created, engineer simply goes to the library and clicks Publish Application, and then selects here it will be then Notepad as a template, and then just a couple other configurations here, maybe maximum number of instances in the system. Click Publish, and this will create a machine catalog in Citrix on desktop, and so you can go from there. So really, we're simplifying and eliminating the need to go to Zen Desktop Studio for most frequent sort of and maybe time-consuming tasks. So this was the part of the demo of administration portal. So I will move back to the deck, and we have just a couple slides there as a summary. So yes, application store and administration portal are the two pieces of the functionality that are provided. They simplify administration of this environment. From the value proposition, we see sort of significant savings in terms of cost. Obviously, it's just the cost side or TCO side, total cost of ownership over 3 years, minimum 25% savings that come from labor savings on implementation and ongoing management of this environment, but also from very cost-efficient hardware infrastructure. Obviously, this is not really saying in full that while you're reducing cost, you're actually getting a much better performing system than many of the traditional ways of doing it. Or it will take just a substantial amount of time to go through the learning curve and define your sort of golden standard that you can use here. So we see that from what traditionally may take, let's say, 24 weeks from sort of architecting, designing the system, ordering, procuring, negotiating with vendors, getting the parts ordered, putting them in the data center, installing software, configuring, troubleshooting, going through a pilot, and then maybe expanding it into a larger production environment. So all that is very time consuming, and 24 weeks is probably even on the lower side. This for many companies takes about a year. And unfortunately, the upgrade process is also very complex. So we see this system is used by many companies to upgrade and expand their environments. So the Citrix licensing is already there, Microsoft licensing in most cases. So really the system brings an underlying platform that's very high performing and then easy to manage. And then from deployment perspective, for a mid-size company, let's say 300, 500 users, we're talking probably about 4 to 6 weeks from when the hardware is in the data center to going live in production. And a big part of it is really just knowledge transfer about how to manage the system and coordination. The actual effort of deploying is very minimal because most of the steps are automated. The system has been in production for, by now, about 3 years with multiple customers. The largest deployment is actually 15,000 users in 4 data centers. But the deployment ranges, really. We have also very small customers to the level of a dentist office using this setup, or veterinary hospitals, maybe with 50 to 100 users. Healthcare obviously is a great space for VDI in general. But then manufacturing and a number of other industries with legacy applications or security requirements are using this. This is used by service providers as well, so we have partners that provide that. This slide just was summarizing that I already maybe said. Really, the deployment is very streamlined. Really, just after the order for the appliance is done, it's really about just getting hardware and licenses, which may take a couple weeks, and then running setup wizard and configuring the system using administration portal, which is sort of step 2. There may be some user acceptance testing around apps that's happening in that step, and then it goes live into production. And then the system is also deployed in branch offices. We're working on some cases in banking industry or financial services where it can be sort of deployed at a branch. In small business and small and medium business, this appliance, frankly, can be the infrastructure for applications as well, because it provides a hyperconverged system to run multiple VMs with great performance. So SQL is already there. We're deploying ID in an automated way. So for small business, it becomes sort of an end-to-end system. But for larger businesses, mid-size and larger businesses, it will be deployed in a data center and for a specific desktop virtualization workload as a standalone system, just integrated with existing IT infrastructure. So hosting providers are using it, and then we see increasing trend of people deploying things in the cloud. As applications move to the cloud, then some of the desktop virtualization may need to be deployed and managed there. So our portal provides a great way of simplified management of user and subscriptions. And then we have templates for deployment in Azure or AWS environments. So this was the last slide. So we're moving into a Q&A portion of this webinar. So please feel free to submit additional questions. I see some of them here in line, but please submit any additional ones. We have still have a couple minutes to go through those. Okay. So the first question is around the hyperconverged system. What is really driving the IOPS improvement in your hyperconverged system? So there are a couple aspects or maybe layers of technologies that are used and aligned to make sure that the virtual desktops perform well. It starts with the way we configure, VHDs or virtual hard disks. They're broken into individual differencing disk, and so if it is a persistent VDI, then the user will get just for the user-specific VM a small differencing disk of about maybe 1 or 2 gigabyte, whereas most of the standard applications and obviously the operating system are part of the base image. And hence the size of the persistent VDI image is pretty small. Obviously, if user installs individual user-specific applications, it can grow, but everything that's standard is part of the master image. So this allows much better caching of the OS image and obviously drives better sort of read performance. So that's the first level. The second level is what we do with DataCore is sort of unique. I mean, the reason DataCore software was selected is that it's pretty much the only product in the market that we see that's doing in-memory caching for reads and writes, because most other products rely on SSD for caching and persisting writes. DataCore confirms to the hypervisor pretty much the moment the block is in RAM. Now, most of those writes for Windows OS is actually log files, and the system can easily recover if a couple blocks are lost. But in reality, most also of the things done in desktop virtualization are non-persistent images like Znap applications and pooled VDI. So it's really nothing bad even to lose that last block. So that's unique. So literally, hypervisor would see DataCore storage provided here as in-memory speed storage for both reads and writes. So frequent reads are cached in RAM, and writes, as soon as the block is written to the write cache, DataCore Send Symphony software confirms to the hypervisor that the block is written. And then it does another trick of aggregating smaller blocks into bigger blocks. So whatever goes to storage control is about 100 times to maybe 500 times reduction in number of IOPS that come from the hypervisor. So it's a significant, reduction by combining just 4K blocks into 512K blocks. And the third level is the storage controller. We're using relatively standard by now techniques of flash-backed RAM cache or memory cache. It's called at a controller level that enables RAID functions. And we also use SSD for caching at the controller level, which just provides the pretty high underlying IOPS at the sort of raw storage level, and that those IOPS available there, performance is multiplied by a factor of 100, so really leading to hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of IOPS available to the system, and as you know, it drives performance. So kind of took a little bit longer to explain, but it's a well-thought system. We have login VSI tests done on it, and as I mentioned, performance benchmarks as well. So I'll look at the other questions here. I think the ask is to please outline the typical steps in the project, happening in the project implementation sort of the system. I guess the request is about additional level of detail. So if I look at some of our recent deployments that accumulate sort of obviously a lot of expertise and knowledge from the previous deployments and a good amount of documentation that's available, it really starts probably from engagement with the customer, where we help structure the requirements into relatively sort of reasonable blocks, and for example, understand sort of what type of virtual desktops are needed in alignment with the thin client sort of strategy and endpoint strategy. So we kind of categorize different types of virtualization mapped to different types of endpoints. And so that way the pretty good picture evolves in terms of what virtualization is needed for what user groups. So at that point, when it's relatively clear how many users will fall into, let's say, application virtualization only, or which users will need a sort of virtual desktop and can move to thin client, and which users will need maybe a persistent virtual desktops. So when that clarity is there, then it is a capacity question. So that's sort of step two. Capacity really in this system is mostly measured by CPU because we're just over-provisioning RAM. It's a relatively inexpensive resource. And from storage capacity also, without the tiering, the cost of storage here is probably 5 times less than comparable on performance and capacity systems. So storage is not a problem just by adding additional hard disk, really not even SSDs, but hard disk. You can expand storage and have 10, 20, 30, 40 gigabyte per user if needed, or more. So really the main metric of capacity is CPU. And so then we use a metric of about 200 megahertz per task worker, and so more advanced office user will probably have double of that capacity. And so from there you can relatively easily calculate what type of processor will run how many users per node, and come up with a number of nodes needed. So it can be done literally within sort of minutes time. So that's the next step, and then the appliance node configuration is clear. I mean, again, we have a bill of material already ready. We don't need to go through multiple cycles of deciding which parts and part numbers. So it's simply hardware, simply ordered and shipped to the data center, then rack and stacked, connected to the network. From that point on, there is really just a couple days needed to install Citrix desktop virtualization environment. I mean, frankly, it's a matter of a couple hours, but there may be just one meeting with the customer about collecting all the prerequisite information needed. So we provide a template that can be filled out, and hence all the needed information is collected. So when the setup wizard runs and deploys the farm, then it's really just about creating a couple more images for maybe some other groups of users where additional applications are installed. That step may take also a couple more days. In essence, with some delays here and there, it may take a week or two, after which the system goes into user acceptance. So a group of 5 to 10 users are given access. They start testing it over internet, on LAN, some feedback about missing apps, configurations can go to the IT team. And then this couple weeks are also used to continue sort of IT operations integration of the system. For example, backup process, monitoring process are done in that week, sort of 3 and 4 post-hardware deployment. And then after this 4 weeks, after the hardware has arrived in the data center, the system is sort of fully tested and tweaked, and just can go into production, and then later on, by expanding, ordering additional nodes, the system can grow. Okay, so here is one more question about cost savings. So what really drives the cost savings that were outlined above, this 25%? So if you look at the TCO, total cost of ownership, frankly, the hardware cost is not even the biggest component in the system. Obviously, if you go and do traditional deployment with sort of a SAN and blade servers, then you typically over-provision storage and then to get the needed IOPS performance. Or people would use a pure SSD storage to get the IOPS performance, but then there is a constraint on storage capacity there, or it becomes also expensive. So compared to that, the system uses auto tiering, and the cost of hardware is relatively low, so it's probably in the ballpark of sort of 15 to 20% out of total cost. Then there is a Citrix Microsoft licensing cost, and then there is a services cost of implementing and managing the system. So that's the biggest area of saving with the automation that we provide. Obviously, kind of the effort as such of deploying this spread over those couple weeks of the project that I just described is significant reduction in effort to implement the system. And then administration portal simplifies a number of recurring sort of steps in administering that environment, so also drives a saving. From the functionality of the software that's provided by Desktop 365 Automation, frankly, you would probably need to buy 7 different products to get to a similar level of automation and functionality. So that's probably another area of saving. And obviously part of it is Desktop 365 licensing, but the feature set, if you were to acquire it through individual products, you would really need to buy multiple products, and would be much more expensive than buying this integrated SKU. We see sort of the amount that we charge for software licensing here for automation, we see sort of a factor of maybe 5 times and higher, larger savings than the licensing fees. So there is a great ROI on the overall this appliance model. So we're getting close to the end of our discussion. I think some of the questions can be addressed in one-on-one dialogue as well. I mean, I see some of them that may fall in that court. So thanks a lot for joining this webinar. And you're welcome to contact us through the website. There's a contact form there at www.desktop365.com, or simply just drop us an email at channel@desktop365.com, and we'll be happy to connect in one-on-one sessions and understand how we could potentially work together. So thank you very much, and we will end the webinar with this. Bye.